Hey everyone, this is Corey with Stafford's EDC, and today we're going to take a look at the Vosteed, I don't know why I said Vosteed, Valkyrie. This is a front flipper, thumb stud, rear flipper button lock in 154 cm. And you hear that? That noise is so, I don't know if I love it or hate it, but it tings on the way shut. You can hear that, I'm sure. Yeah, you can definitely hear it that way. This is an interesting piece. This has a nice thin grind on it. It cuts pretty well. The ergos with this forward finger choil are pretty good on this. They're not amazing by any means, but it's a pretty neutral handle, so it's not hot spotting in any kind of way. The clip is nice. It's deep carry with recessed screws. The button lock feels good. It's not too easy to push down. The detent works well for the flipper as well as for the thumb stud. The front flipper, I'm not huge on for this. Front flippers, you need a really strong detent. And you just don't get that a lot of times with a button lock. I really want to take some effort to push this open. And it works, but it's very easy to just kind of start that deployment. The thumb studs are pretty easy as well. I mean, this works great for the rear flipper. But, the thumb studs work fine. You can reverse flick and everything. But it's just not strong enough to be preferential for the thumb studs, and especially not for the front flipper here. Though it does work fine. The geometry is good on this in terms of the positioning of the front flipper. So it does function. It just is very light on the detent, so something to keep in mind. There is jimping on this guy, which is nice to see. Always makes it feel extra secure in hand. And especially if you're going to choke up here. This really isn't going to go anywhere, and you're going to miss the jimping when you choke up, but it's fine. It doesn't bother me too much. This, for the most part, like I said, doesn't really feel like it's going anywhere. Kind of locks in. You have this little swell up here. Makes for a nice place to put your pointer finger. Use that tip for some fine work, or you can wrap that middle finger into that finger choil. Works really great. Now, you don't get a ton of cutting edge for the blade here. You're losing almost half an inch of blade to this finger choil, which it is what it is. The finger choil is definitely comfortable. It's definitely not needed, though. I wear a large size glove, and I get like 3.5 fingers on this without that finger choil area, and I think having the extra blade would be nice, especially because you can kind of choke up to this point on the flipper here, too. You could do that, and you could have extra blade length, or cutting edge length, I should say, which would be nice to see. But regardless, this does work just fine the way it is. Just aesthetically, it's a choice that I'm not a huge fan of. But performance-wise, this is great. This is a very thin blade stock. You can see by the thumb studs there. And then you can see it's got this swedge that goes up most of the way. And by the time you're past the swedge, the blade's no longer at its full thickness up here at the tip. So this does stay really well performing through cuts. Once you get up that grind, which this is a flat grind, and it's not ground crazy thin, but the blade's pretty thin as it is, so the grind allows this to pass through material nice and easy, and overall, it just performs pretty well. I like the noise. I know the price on these is under $100, I do believe. I know Vosteed's mostly a budget-oriented company. They do have some more expensive stuff, of course, but they have stuff like this, G10, 154 cm. I can't imagine this being over $100, but I would have to check that to be sure. Regardless, though, this is a good knife. If this is in like the $70 range, I could recommend this to a lot of different people. The thumb stud action is good. Like I said, it's a little bit on the light side for the detent of it, but the flipper works great. And nude knife people probably aren't going to front flip, so I'm not worried about that kind of a thing. And of course, you get to see a button lock mechanism, which is great. Nice to see that. It's kind of overdone now. It's everyone and their mother has done a button lock, but when it's done well and when it's executed nicely, it's nice to see that. And that's a good example of what we have here in the Valkyrie. The overall aesthetics, not particularly my jam. I'm not much of a warny guy, not much of a sheep's foot guy, but I do like this knife overall, and I think a lot of you guys will probably like this too if you have not seen this before. I'm assuming you've seen this on other channels, but if you haven't before, and I'm turning you onto this model for the first time, yeah, check one out. If you happen to know somebody who has one, borrow one first, but If you want a button lock, flipper, thumb stud, multiple deployment type of knife, go ahead and pick one of these up. These are pretty good. You know, it's going to perform really well, and it's got that utilitarian type blade. You can get that detailed work in with that kind of a pinch grip going on. You know, there's not a whole lot to complain about. You know, G10's G10. You know, materials could be nicer. They could make a premium version, which would be cool. But as it stands, the Vosteed Valkyrie is a pretty good knife. And overall, something I'm pretty happy with, and I'm glad I got the chance to check this out from Pass Around. So I'm going to leave this video here, keeping things nice and short and sweet. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.